King Sombra's Revenge. Written by Blue Moon Hero. Read by Swedish Diablo. Page after page, Twilight has spent several hours in King Sombra's secret workroom under the Crystal Empire's throne room. She had read several of Sombra's diaries to learn more about the Empire's former ruler. While reading a deep reading of one of the diaries, she doesn't hear that some pony coming up behind her. "Twilight, are you still here and reading?" asked Cadence. Twilight jumped when she heard Cadence behind her and quickly turned around and looked at her sister-in-law. "Cadence, you scared me," said Twilight. "Forgive me, Twilight. That was just not meaning," said Cadence. "I just wanted to come and tell you you have been down here for almost 8 hours reading diaries," said Cadence. "Well, I want to try to learn more about Sombra, which made him get angry," said Twilight. Cadence looked around in the room and sees that Twilight has been reading through at least a dozen of books that are open round the room. She looks at Twilight, who looks at the diary that she was reading. "I just want to tell you it is lunch," said Cadence. "Okay, I will be right up," said Twilight. "Okay," said Cadence. Before Cadence went up the stairs, she turned around and saw that Twilight went back to the diary and read from it. Cadence walked up the stairs and Twilight continued to read the diary. When she was finished, she would take another book from the bookshelf, but then she discovered that it was not a real book when the bookshelf moved. She discovered that there was a smaller room behind the bookshelf that held a small table with a book on it and an object under fabric. She took the book and became aware of what could be rather under the fabric. I wonder what is under the fabric," said Twilight. Twilight lifted the fabric, and when the fabric landed on the floor, she saw a red crystal. The crystal was shaped like a diamond. She became so hypnotized by the crystal. But before Twilight touched the crystal, she heard some pony calling on her. "Twilight, it's lunch," called the Shining Armor. "I'm coming," said Twilight. Twilight looks at the crystal and leaves the room by leaving the book at the crystal and run up the stairs to the dining room. At lunch, Twilight sits and thinking about the crystal. Shining Armor can see that her sister seems a bit absent. "Twilight, are you okay?" asked Shining Armor. "What? I'm okay," said Twilight. "You seemed a little distant," said Cadence. "Forgive me, I just thinking about what I read about Sombra," said Twilight. "Have you learned anything new?" asked Shining Armor. "No, not so much," replied Twilight. "Just that he wrote about his longing for more power and larger lands," said Twilight. Twilight ate her lunch and went back to the workroom to read more from the book at the crystal. She took the book and started to reading it. After she finished reading the book, she went to the crystal. What she had read from the book that seems to be Sombra's first diary. He wrote in the diary of his first time as ruler. "Today, when I inspected my new kingdom, I discovered a red crystal on the outskirts of the city. I was curious about the crystal and brought it back to the city to turn into a piece of jewelry. I brought the crystal and shaped it to a diamond, but after a while I noticed that I became more obsessed with the crystal and wanted more crystal and power. I realized then before it was too late to do something that the crystal changed my mind. It was the last one in the diary, and then Twilight realized that Sombra was a good unicorn until the crystal changed him. But she didn't think a crystal could make Sombra a bad pony. She chose to do a survey. She went to the crystal and looked at it. I don't think the crystal can change Sombra, said Twilight. But when she touched the crystal, she felt a sharp shock in her body and fell to the floor. A couple of minutes later, Twilight woke up. She tried to remember what happened, but then she just remembered she was touching the crystal. She looked at it, but it seemed to change. She left the room and closed the bookshelf behind her. She left the workroom and went up to her room to rest a little. She seems to be a bit exhausted after reading so much books. Once in Twilight's guest room, she tried to rest a little, but she had a difficulty to sleeping. She had strange dreams that she was in a dark room. She heard a voice whispering her the same thing over and over again. Touch the crystal. Touch the crystal, said a voice. Twilight could see two red eyes in front of her in the dark room. She walked slowly and a mirror appeared from her. When she looked into the mirror, she saw her in the mirror, but it wasn't her red eyes when she saw it. She saw somebody else in the mirror, and she saw that it was Sombra, who smiled at her with an evil look. You will revenge me, said Sombra. No, I will never, said Twilight. But it's too late, said Sombra. Twilight looked at herself in the mirror and sees that her red eyes became like Sombra's that glow in red and green. Twilight gets horrified and starts screaming. No, let me be alone, screams Twilight. Laughed Sombra evil. Twilight, wake up, please wake up, said Shining Armor. Twilight woke up in her bed, and next to her bed stood Shining Armor, Cadence, and Spike. They looked at her with nauseous looking at her. I had a so horrible nightmare, said Twilight. It was just a dream, Twilight, said Shining Armor. It felt so real, said Twilight. What was the nightmare about? Twilight asked Spike. Twilight then explained to them about the nightmare, and then looked at her and smiled at her. Cadence went to Twilight and put her head on Twilight's cheek. Twilight, you can be calm. Sombra has been gone for a long time. He will never return, said Cadence. You're probably right, said Twilight. Do you want something to eat, Twilight? Asked Spike. I am a little hungry, said Twilight. Twilight followed Spike and Shining Armor to the dining room, and Shining Armor made some supper for Twilight. As she sat down, she could still hear Sombra's voice whispering in her head over again. After Twilight had eaten her supper, the others had gone to bed. But Twilight couldn't sleep, so she chose to wander around the castle to clear her head in the dining room. Twilight went out to the balcony near the throne room and looked out over the city, and she tried to imagine that the nightmare was just a silly dream and that the crystal had no effect. But Sombra's voice became louder the whole time. And then Twilight went forward to the throne. As she went in trance, she used her magic to get the entrance to Sombra's workroom. She walked down the stairs and opened the secret room in the workroom. She stepped forward to the red crystal and stared at the crystal for a while. Sombra's voice is so strong that it gets Twilight to touch the crystal again, and the crystal and a light glow. When Twilight stands still, when the light hits her, then when the light is gone, Twilight opens her eyes and is all red and green. She smiles with an evil smile and little laughs from for her. Now the empire will be my kingdom, said Twilight. Then Twilight laughs with an evil laugh. Already the next morning, when Cadence and Shining Armor stepped into the throne room, they see Twilight sitting in the throne. They were surprised to see her on the throne and step forward to her, but they were stopped by two royal guards. Twilight, what's happening? Asked Cadence. Everything is good, replied Twilight. Can you ask the guards to let us go? Asked Shining Armor. Unfortunately, my dear big brother, but I can't, replied Twilight. The guards are loyal to me now, said Twilight. From now on, every pony in Crystal Empire is my slaves, said Twilight. You can't do that, said Shining Armor. Silent, said Twilight. Guards, take them to the prison until they choose to listen to me, said Twilight. Yes, Your Highness, said a guard. The guards approached Shining Armor and Cadence. They tried to prevent the guards from grabbing them, but then a guard flew around and hit Shining Armor in the head. Cadence saw everything with horror, and she watched the guard that it was Flash Sentry. Flash, please don't do it. See, it's me, Cadence, said Cadence. It's no idea. He will not help you, said Twilight. Cadence then understood that Flash and the other guards were under enchanting Twilight's magic. Before she did anything, the guards put handcuffs on her and Shining Armor and was taken to the prison. Cadence watched Twilight with tears in her eyes. Now nothing can stop my plans to control Crystal Empire, said Twilight. But then Twilight became silent and realized that Spike was still free, that he could warn the other Pawn Princesses of Twilight. She could not let that happen. Guards, look for Spike, immediately taken to me, said Twilight. Yes, Your Highness, said the guards. The guards immediately left the throne room and began to look for Spike. Twilight went out to her balcony and looked out over the city. Now she could make sure her power was safe and was not stopped by any pawn. Meanwhile, Spike had hid himself with Flurry Heart. He had heard and seen everything outside the gate to the throne room. He thought something was wrong with Twilight because she would never be so, but he knew it was too dangerous for him and Flurry to stay in the Empire. He fought for a safe way for them to flee. He found a good way and carried on Flurry and slipped through the palace without also keep her ears open to not be detected by the guards. He managed to sneak out of the palace and now walked through the city and him to the train station. A train was about to leave. Spike ran as fast as he could, but he didn't get it in time. Flurry flew with Spike on her to the train. They landed on the roof of the train, and Spike could look out to the city disappear behind them. He got tears in his eyes. I will come back with you with help, Twilight, said Spike. I will help you, said Spike. The train went on, and they stopped at Ponyville at dusk. Spike and Flurry flew off the train and landed at the station. Spike took Flurry to Rarity, who lived closest. He knew that the store was closed, but he had no choice. He knocked on the door with no sound heard from. "Rarity, please, open! It's me, Spike, a Fleurheart," said Spike. "Please, Rarity, it's very important," said Spike. But a moment later, the door opened, and Rarity stood there. She was surprised to see Spike, because she knew that he would be in the Crystal Empire with Twilight. "Spike, I thought you were in Crystal Empire with Twilight," said Rarity. "What are you doing here?" asked Rarity. "Something has happened to Twilight," said Spike. "I promised to explain, but we have to pick up the others fast," said Spike. Rarity watched Spike, and she saw something was wrong. She smiled at Spike and closed the shop. They went to Sugar Cube Corner to pick up Pinky, and they picked up the others and went to Sweet Apple Acres. In the barn, they sat and waiting for Spike to explain what was going on. "Spike, now we all are here," said Applejack. "Yes, can you explain now why you gathered us here?" said Rainbow Dash. "Okay, I will explain," said Spike. Spike took a deep breath and immediately began to explain everything to his friends. Every pony sat silent and listened, and their faces went from scratching to fear. When Spike was finished, he looked at them and saw they were horrified. "Now you know what has happened," said Spike. "I can't believe it," said Fluttershy. "Yes, it's something awful that happened to Twilight," said Rarity. "But what can we do?" asked Applejack. "That's easy," replied Rainbow Dash. "What are we going to do now?" asked Fluttershy. "We take us to Crystal Empire and talk to Twilight," replied Rainbow Dash. "No, it will not work," said Spike. "Cadence tried, but Twilight just laughed at her," said Spike. The others looked at each other and to figure out how they will do to help Twilight. They were quiet for a while, thinking. "Maybe we can ask the other princesses for help," said Fluttershy. "It might be worth a try," said Spike. "Spike, send a message to Celestia and tell her everything for her," said Rarity. "Okay," said Spike. Spike immediately wrote a message and sent the message. After he had sent it, they looked at each other. "What are we going to do now?" asked Pinky. "All we can do now is wait for Celestia to answer," replied Applejack. "Meanwhile, we can all go home and wait," said Rarity. "Where are Spike and Flurry going to sleep?" asked Fluttershy. Then they realized they had forgotten Fleurheart. "They can sleep here at Sweet Apple Acres," replied Applejack. "We will not intrude them?" asked Spike. "No, not at all," replied Applejack. "Okay, think you can stay here," said Spike. "You're so welcome," said Applejack. The friends said goodbye to each other, so Spike and Flurry went with Applejack into her house. They had managed to agree not to mention anything about Twilight for the others to not panic. Spike could not sleep that night. He lay thinking about Twilight, so he chose to go up for something to drink to help him to sleep. When he entered the kitchen, he saw Applejack was awake, and she was not surprised to see Spike. "You can't sleep either?" asked Applejack. "No, I'm so worried about Twilight," replied Spike. "I agree," said Applejack. They sat at the kitchen table and were silent for a while and started talking a bit. Applejack could see that Spike was really worried about Twilight because she had never saw him so scared earlier. She puts her hoof on his hand and looks at him. "Don't worry, Spike," she you. "Everything will be fine again," said Applejack. "Thanks, Applejack," said Spike. They both remained in the kitchen for a while, an hour before choosing to go to bed, even though they couldn't fall asleep directly, but after a while they fell asleep. The next morning, friends were gathered in the barn to find out if Celestia had responded to her message. "Yes, I received a reply from Celestia this morning," said Spike. Spike opened the message and began to read for the others who were expecting Celestia's response. "Dear Spike, thank you for your message, and me and my sister Luna were really shocked what you wrote. We will immediately send a smaller patrol to Crystal Empire to gather information about the state of the Empire. We will hope with the new information so we can get a closer Twilight and find a solution. Also, how she changed. I understand that you and your friends are worried, but you should know that I and Luna are worried as you. It is a shame that you can't use the elements of harmony without Twilight. But I beg you all to not give up hope of Twilight. We will help her. We will report back when we've received the information. With regards, Celestia." Spikes released the message and looks at the others who are still quiet. They looked at each other. "How long will it last?" asked Fluttershy. "1 day," replied Spike. "That's what I guess," said Spike. "Okay, we all have to prepare for anything," said Applejack. "Yes, of course, darling," said Rarity. The friends left the barn with Applejack and Spike were left. Spike helped at Sweet Apple Acres while Applebloom was playing with Fairyheart. Already next morning, Spike received a message from Celestia. He called to his friends to the barn. "I received a reply from Celestia this morning," said Spike. "What did she wrote?" asked Rarity. "She wrote this to us," replied Spike. "Dear Spike, you and your friends should come to Cantlot immediately and bring Fairyheart. We have received the information we need about the situation in Crystal Empire. With regards, Celestia." "Hope it is good news," said Fluttershy. "I agree," said Pinkie Pie. "We should go directly to Canterlot," said Rainbow Dash. The friends took the train to Canterlot and were treated at the castle by Celestia and Luna. Inside the throne room, close to Celestia's left side, is a grey Pegasus with a white mane. Spike immediately recognized him as Colonel Stormwind. He is the leader of the Special Patrol in Canterlot. "Welcome to Canterlot during this situation," said Celestia. "You wrote that you had gathered information?" said Applejack. "That's right," said Luna. "This is Colonel Stormwind. He is the leader of Canterlot's Special Patrol," said Celestia. Everybody greeted Stormwind, who greeted them back. "Tell us now, how is the Crystal Empire?" asked Applejack. "It doesn't seem so very well," replied Stormwind. "It seems like the Crystal ponies dig up crystals for the Celeste Twilight in exchange," said Stormwind. "Did you see Twilight?" asked Fluttershy. "Yes, we did," said Stormwind. "Do we have any chance to come close to her?" asked Rarity. Answer: no. It seems difficult. She always has 3 or 4 guards with her everywhere she goes, replied Stormwind. The friends looked at each other and at Stormwind. "There must be a way to reach Twilight without being detected by the guards," said Rainbow Dash. "We searched all possible ways, but no seems to be work," said Stormwind. "Okay," said Applejack, "but it will be back no matter if I get into a prison," said Spike. The friends was watching Spike, and his looks very serious. The friends was impressed by Spike's courage. "We'll bring you, Spike, wherever it happens, so we are with you," said Rainbow Dash. "Yes, absolutely," said Pinkie Pie. "When we are in Crystal Empire, We also saw to add that all unicorns had a ring on their horns that prevented them from using magic, said Stormwind. That sounds terrible, said Fluttershy. They also put ropes around the stomach and wings on Pegasus so they couldn't fly, said Stormwind. It got Rainbow Dash furious. To prevent Pegasus from using the wings is not right, said Rainbow Dash. I agreed, said Stormwind. Applejack looked at his friends who were worried and then looked at Stormwind. What is the plan of saving Twilight? Asked Applejack. I have no plan yet, replied Stormwind. But I'm going to figure out a plan, said Stormwind. You get to answer within 2 hours, said Stormwind. Stormwind left the throne room and the others remained and hoped that Stormwind could get on a good plan to save their friend and Crystal Empire. At the same time, in the Crystal Empire in the prison, Cadance is sad and Shining Armor tries to comfort his wife, but at least they know Spike had managed to flee with a daughter, so she was safe. But they also know that Twilight was not herself. Cadance looked and then she saw that Flash sentry stood outside the cell. Flash, please help us, said Cadance. There's no idea you're trying, said Cadance, said Shining Armor. He's still in there, said Cadance. Please, Flash, look at me. I'm asking you, said Cadance. But Flash doesn't listen to Cadance. But after she asked him to look at him a second time, he turned around and looked at Cadance. She could see that his eyes was shiny because of the enchantment. Please, Flash, try to remember who I am. I know you're in there somewhere, said Cadance. Try to remember your love for Twilight, said Cadance. But Flash didn't move, and Cadance then gave up the hope of breaking Flash's enchantment. But then she heard something and turned around. Cadance, is it you? Asked Flash. Yes, that's me, Flash, replied Cadance. Cadance can see that Flash's eyes were not so shiny anymore, and it shows that enchantment was broken. Shining Armor was doubtful whether he was really free from the enchantment and looked closely. Even then, he was convinced. Flash, release us, said Shining Armor. Unfortunately, I can't, said Flash. Don't hesitate then, asked Cadance. We don't want the Twilight to detect your escape, replied Flash. But I can promise to gather information about the situation in the Empire and if the rest of the questions, said Flash. It sounds like a plan, said Shining Armor. But promise us to find out how Twilight was changed, said Cadance. I promise I will, said Flash, because I could see everything happen though. I didn't control my own body, said Flash, but try to play as under enchantment. Meanwhile, said Shining Armor. Yes, Captain Armor, said Flash. Flash resumed as he did before, and now Cadance and Shining Armor could feel some relief that they had a friend on their side again. A couple of hours later in Canterlot, Colonel Stormwind had arrived into the throne room and gathered every pony in the throne room. Twilight's friends was curious about what the Stormwind plan was about. What have you been up for? Asked Rainbow Dash. Well, my plan is you and my patrol begins, bring us to Crystal Empire, replied Stormwind. There we shall divide ourselves in smaller groups, said Stormwind. A group will try to find Shining Armor and Cadance, while a group keep the guards busy, said Stormwind. Who should be in the secondary group? Asked Fluttershy. I can imagine Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash, replied Stormwind. Especially for Pinkie's talent in creating a party and Rainbow's speed, said Stormwind. You can count on us, said Pinky and Rainbow. Who will be to save Cadence the Shining Armor? Asked Applejack. I imagine with Applejack, Rarity, and myself, replied Stormwind. Okay, said Applejack. When will you give us away? Asked Rarity. Now immediately, replied Stormwind. Fairyheart stays here in Canterlot because here is she safe with Celestia and Luna, said Stormwind. Good luck with the assignment, said Luna. Thank you very much, said Stormwind. Stormwind and the others took the train so close to Crystal Empire as they could without being detected. As they stepped out of the train, they began to walk as good view over the Empire. There they could see the Empire was not light as the was before, but more dark, and dark crystals had appeared. With the binoculars, Stormwind could see how the ponies struggled with digging and transporting crystals to the palace. Twilight's friends could see everything, and they were desperate to see. Are every pony ready to save the Empire? Asked Stormwind. We are, said every pony. Remember your groups and good luck, said Stormwind. The group was split up, and every pony gave to the different parts of the city. At the same time, in the throne room stands Twilight and looks out over her kingdom. She has an evil smile. She hears some pony walks up to the throne room and waiting for it, and she sees a Flash. What about the prisoners? Asked Twilight. The prisoners are quiet and calm, replied Flash. Good. Soon I will conquer the rest of Equestria, said Twilight. Now, leave me alone, said Twilight. Yes, Your Highness, said Flash. Flash left the throne room and proceeded to a prison to leave a report to Shining Armor about the situation. Both Cadence and Shining Armor was remained amazed that Twilight planned to conquer the rest of Equestria. They planned, both wished some pony could help them. But what they didn't know, Twilight's friends managed to get inside into the city. Pinky and Rainbow were hidden in one place and waiting for the right opportunity to do a version maneuver so their friends could enter the palace. When they saw a patrol about 12 guards approaching, they prepared themselves. When the patrol just passed, Pinky jumped behind them. Hi, do you know where the bakery is located? Asked Pinky. Round the corner, replied the guard. But then the guards realized what they were waiting for, and Pinkie Pie stood behind them and laughing at them. Grab her! Grab her! Said the guard. The guards started rushing against Pinkie, but they didn't talk long before Rainbow Dash quickly swung around on the rope. She watched the guards and laughed at them. Good job, Pinkie, said Rainbow Dash. Thank you, Dashy. I'm just doing my duty, said Pinkie Pie. Inside the palace, Flash as it is a cell, and then he hears when Cadence and Shining Armor talk about Twilight. How could Twilight be so changed in one night? Asked Shining Armor. It happened after she had been in King Sombra's secret workroom, replied Cadence. The answer must be there, said Cadence. Cadence looks at Flash, that looks straight ahead. Flash, can you find out what could cause Twilight to be evil? Asked Cadence. Of course, replied Flash. The other guard came to take over Flash's location, and Flash then went to the throne room because he knew Twilight would be in the city. He used to sneak into the workroom and search among the books and documents, but he didn't seem to find anything but then he saw a bookshelf standing was on the verge. He opened it more and saw a red crystal and a book. Flash started to reading the book until he was finished. Then he realized that the crystal was the reason that it contained some of Sombra's consciousness. He immediately left the workroom and the throne room. Meanwhile, Rarity, Applejack, and Stormwind managed to enter the palace without being seen. They flew up through the castle to the prison, but then when they walked around the corner, they were discovered by Flash. Before Applejack hit him down, he asked her not to do it. "Please stop! I'm not brainwashed anymore," said Flash. "How can you believe it?" asked Rarity. "You must believe me," replied Flash. "Cadence was the one who managed to free me from the enchantment," said Flash. I can bring you to the prison," said Flash. "I don't know if we're relying on Flash," said Applejack. "We have no other choice," said Stormwind. "Okay, take us to the prison," said Applejack. They still didn't trust Flash. They think he was going to lead them in trap. But he brought them to a prison, and there was a guard out at the cell. "Wait here, I will call the guard," said Flash. Flash went to the guard, and they could see what he spoke to the guard. They thought he was going to telling them. But the guard went somewhere else. And when it was certain he waited, they ran to his cell. "Cadence, I'm with you," said Flash. "Rarity? Applejack? I'm real happy to see you again," said Cadence. "Stormwind? It was not yesterday," said Shining Armor. "Do you know each other?" asked Applejack. "Well, we were the same royal guard in Canterlot," replied Shining Armor. "Sorry if I interrupt, but we don't have a long time on us," said Flash. "I also found out what caused Twilight's change," said Flash. "Tell us," said Cadence. The Flash immediately began to tell everything of what he read in a book and about the crystal, and then the others realized that was the wrong with Twilight. But then they came across thinking how to help Twilight to break Sombra's enchantment. They started thinking about a plan to save Twilight. When they reached a plan, they chose to meet the rest of the group. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie had entered the palace after they had locked it into guards. They hid in the area and waited for the others, although Rainbow began to be impatient with waiting. "Can't the others come soon? I'm getting restless," said Rainbow Dash. "Be calm. They will come, Dashy," said Pinkie Pie. Pinkie was right. After a minute, the others showed up and explained everything to Pinkie and Rainbow about the plan. They went to the throne room where Twilight was, and she was surprised to see they just stepped into her throne room. She was still shocked to see Flash with them. "Flash, how you broken my enchantment?" asked Twilight. "Cadence helped to break the enchantment," replied Flash, technically. "But it doesn't matter," said Twilight. "You have no chance at me now," said Twilight. "Guards! Guards!" screamed Twilight. Then there were at least 20 guards around the throne and surrounded them. Twilight just hits her friends with a bad smile. But Twilight's friends were not as afraid except Fluttershy. "We will stop you, Twilight," said Stormwind. "You just think that," said Twilight. Stormwind looks at the others and on the guards who still surrounded them. "On them!" said Stormwind. The guards started fighting with Twilight's friends in shining armor. During the battle, Flash and Twilight fight, and he did try to hurt her so hard, but Twilight attacked Flash without holding back, and during the battle was not so long. Rainbow Stormwind succeeded with Applejack and his patrol defeated the guards. When the guards was unconscious, they could see that Twilight and Flash were still fighting in their battle.